Thank you, Chris. Hello. My name's Alex, and I do run a startup in Pasadena, California called Industrial Toys. And we are making mobile games for core gamers. So today I thought I would talk a little bit about our experience so far of making mobile games and where I think the industry is going through the lens of mobile. For those of you who know me, you may ask yourselves, what am I doing here at Casual Connect? I founded Bungie about 20 years ago and grew up making games like Myth the Fallen Lords and Halo, and at Wide Load we made a game called Stubbs the Zombie. Not really your typical casual fare. So when Dave called me up and said, hey, would you like to come up and talk at Casual Connect, I scratched my head a little bit at first. But I realized that I'm now working in a part of the industry, mobile, which has been pioneered by not just casual games, but also casual game players. So I'd probably have a lot to learn by coming up, which I thought would be great. And I also, thinking back the last 5 or so years in our industry, we've seen a lot of systems and mechanics from core games make their way into everything, including casual games. So things like RPG systems and skill trees and stuff like that. So I thought perhaps I might have some stuff to share about what we're doing at Industrial Toys as it relates to mobile games. So I'm going to talk about that too. That sort of leads me to where I think we are, which is that I truly believe that we're at the beginning of a revolution in the game industry, and it's a mobile revolution, as you can see. We've seen our industry cycle a lot, since video games got started, the golden age of arcade machines, the rise of the Atari, and the subsequent crash in the early '80s. People have been saying PC games are dead forever. But with mobile, there's something different going on, and really, I think it is quite revolutionary, and that revolution is all about accessibility. So with smartphones and tablets, particularly smartphones being so easy to get, they're so cheap, and the software that's on them, particularly games, are very inexpensive. Gamers have unprecedented access to games now. In fact, I think it wouldn't be too much of a stretch to say that pretty much everyone is a gamer now, or could potentially be. And equally interesting is that it's not just access for gamers, but it's also access for us makers. So while I would say that everyone can be a gamer, almost everyone can be a maker. And that is a very interesting, I find that to be very interesting in the game business, and is fueling this revolution. And because of that, mobile looks a lot like a bandwagon right now. Everybody wants to get in on mobile games. There's a lot of investment happening. There's a lot of people, quitting their jobs to make mobile games. Even this dude, I think his name is Suresh. He's on the top of that truck. I think he's debugging his iPad game right there. But it's easy to understand why. If you look at it, it's cheap to make mobile games now. This is very reminiscent of when I got into the industry 20 years ago. There's fewer barriers between the maker of a game and the player of a game. You can distribute these games yourself. And there's more gamers than ever before. So it's no surprise that there's a huge mobile bandwagon going on. In fact, if you got a hundo and an iPhone, you can be a game developer and a game publisher, a bona fide game publisher with the shingle out on the App Store, which is pretty cool. And this looks very much like how I got into the business back in 1991. In fact, there's pasty Alex over there on the left at the beginning of Bungie, 5 guys, 6 guys in a room making a game together. And it's kind of come full circle. I now have a studio in Pasadena with a few guys. Of course, we're older and we wear shirts with collars, so it looks a little different. But it's still just a few guys in a room with some computers making a game. And we took a long break from that. 10 years ago, you couldn't do that really. You couldn't get. Could you imagine going down to Bentonville, Arkansas, with a $100 bill, saying, "Hey, Mr. Walmart buyer, will you put my game on the shelf?" Just didn't happen for a good long time, but it's happening again now. And the thing that is interesting about this whole ecosystem that's developing is that it's created a lot of noise, created a lot of noise for the industry. So, like our good buddy Stan Lee said, with great power comes great responsibility. It's not quite good enough to just show up to the party anymore. It's actually important to make great games. It's important to innovate both on the business side, innovate both business and on the design side. So let's talk a little bit about that. I'll talk about sort of 3 things that are going on in the mobile market right now and kind of how I'm reacting to them at least. And they're really, the 3 things are the obvious things that we know are happening. It's access to distribution, it's power of these devices, and it's the reach that these devices are giving us as game makers and publishers. That distribution has gone entirely digital. The power in these devices escalates every year, so there's new features, and the market continues to explode at a phenomenal rate, giving us access to so many gamers. So if you look at what's going on with distribution right now, I find it fascinating that games are now really the only entertainment media without any kind of standardization of format or pricing. Films have been packaged and sold the same way for a long time, same with TV and books, but if you look at what's going on in games, which maybe 10 years ago was kind of standard 20 hours of gameplay for $60, it's really all over the place now. These are just some of the games that I play, and there's, 5 different business models going on here. Some of them are combined in interesting ways. You have some games that you have to pay for but have microtransactions. Some are free to play. Some even have a monetization system around user-generated content. And so you have all these different pricing models and different amounts of money people pay across the spectrum and different varying amounts of content that these games let you enjoy when you play them. So this has created a lot of opportunity for us as developers to innovate on the business model. And particularly when you contrast that with where the industry has been in the last, that last cycle, in the console cycle, where you'd spend $60 on a game that took perhaps $100 million to make, at least in the case of Grand Theft Auto 4, that's very stifling when it comes to innovation. That model right there, publishers avoid taking risk at that level, but it's us entrepreneurs that take risk, and those risks is what seed innovation, which is why what's going on in distribution and the business model on mobile, I think, is particularly important for us. It's particularly important for us to innovate in this area because that is where we will see new models that make the market grow. So I thought I would take a little look at how some of the successful mobile games monetize. And this is what I did this right when we got started at Industrial Toys. I just broke down the business models for about a dozen mobile games, and I picked these 2 to share, but a lot of them share the same magic number, which is the number 10. It's a magic number, and you'll see why in a second. Bejeweled Blitz is a free game that monetizes with in-app purchases of coins. Infinity Blade is a game that you actually spend $5 for this game, but it's got lots of opportunities to microtransact to buy coins as well. And they follow a very simple game loop. You play the game, you run around, you do stuff, it earns you coins. You take those coins and you spend them on stuff to help you do the thing, which in Bejeweled's case is getting up the leaderboard, and in Infinity Blade's case is getting to the boss and beating them. And you can top it off with real money to go faster through that loop. The thing that I found interesting about analyzing this model was not this, because this is sort of obvious, but the thing that was interesting was that they both share this 10-to-1 earn-to-play ratio, where you play the game 10 times, it earns you enough currency to go do something interesting. And pretty much all the games that we broke down shared the same ratio, and I wasn't sure exactly why, but I found it very interesting that they all shared this number. And when I kind of looked even beyond games, apparently it's a thing, because if you look at United Airlines, which I think is exceptionally innovative in the way they monetize their product. It's annoying, but it's certainly innovative. You fly, earn miles, and you can spend those miles to upgrade, and it's that same 10-to-1 earn-to-play ratio. And in fact, they've also adopted lots of different microtransactions, which, while annoying, have made them at least not go into bankruptcy like American. So I found that to be very interesting, and that 10-to-1 model is something that we're kind of taking into consideration as we build our monetization scheme for our products. The next thing to look at is what's going on with the hardware of these devices. The power in these phones and tablets, they're very powerful, and they update their hardware every year, which has a very interesting impact on what us as developers do with that. They all have modern operating systems, and they all give us access to great game building tools. In fact, all the big game engines are available on mobile now, whether it's Unity, Unreal, HTML5, all this kind of stuff. So that is fueling developers' access to these platforms. And if you look at how often the hardware cycles refresh, they refresh every year, which compared to something like a console system, which would refresh their hardware maybe every 5 years at best, introduces a really great area for us as developers to compete with each other on, which is adopting new features and trying to push the envelope, which is another thing that we're certainly focusing on, is what we can do with this power when it becomes available, what we can do with new features as they get rolled out by hardware makers. And that is one area in which we can all take advantage of to innovate and do interesting things. So, with all this power, it is actually very tempting to treat these devices, especially an iPad, which has such a great screen resolution, like it is either a PC or a console or something like that. And this is where I see a lot of mobile games actually fall down a little bit, is that they don't always design for the device. And they don't always design for the way people use these devices. So I have a little video here that I'm going to show, which is, I call it Virtual Dual Sticks Must Die. And I don't know if you've played many 3D games on an iPad or an iPhone, but a lot of them use this virtual dual stick scheme, which it does work. But to make a point, I'm going to show you a video from some video clips from Halo, which show you why I think this is bad and lazy design, which is really kind of porting a control scheme from a platform that's not touch to a platform that is touch. And when we got to Microsoft and we were working on our shooter and we started working on it for a console, there was a lot of concern that it was just going to be hard to do, because back then there really weren't very many console games that were shooters, first-person shooters on console. And the reason being is because shooters grew up on a PC, and part of what makes a shooter fun is that you can take your mouse, which is a direct input device, you can point it at any pixel on the screen and you can shoot it. And that gives the player a tremendous amount of control. And it also provides a tremendous amount of bandwidth to develop skill. So when you start, it's challenging, and you could suck at it. And as you play and repeat that pattern over and over again, you get better at it, better at it, better at it. You can hit that pixel quicker, and you can hit it more accurately, and that is fun. It's fun to do that because you learn how to do something, you get better at it. And when we got to Microsoft and we were using a dual-stick controller, basically you couldn't point that cursor at anything anymore. You had to take a stick and you had to nudge it towards the pixel. And that is much less accurate. It gives you a sense of less control, and it's harder to develop up that skill curve. So there was a lot of work that was done to get a skill curve and to get a sense of control using joysticks, and that's what this video will show you. So if you watch what's happening here, when the camera moves, when that reticle moves over a bad guy, you'll actually see the turn rate of the camera slow down. So there's a programmatic system here that is slowing the speed of the camera. It also will slow the movement speed of the character, and it will also move that reticle subtly for you. And that system right there is designed to give the player a better sense of control. So, but what we've done is basically, back then, is we sort of looked at how a direct input device would work, and we said, okay, how do we give the player the control they had over there on this new input device? And wrote a whole bunch of code over here to make that happen, and then to watch somebody over here on a touch device take that and then emulate it on a direct input device that works like a mouse is, to me, it's silly. But it's a pattern that repeats over and over again when you see a lot of baggage from other platforms show up on mobiles. And my assertion here is that we can't be that lazy. We have to be more thoughtful, and we have to design for this touch input from the ground up, which is actually a really great input scheme. And if you design for it, you can do some really interesting things. So that's my virtual dual sticks must die rant. Okay, and so the other third part of the perfect storm here that is going on is that mobile is really our first truly mass market gaming device. If you look at consoles, which I love console games, and this is not at all about whether consoles will continue to thrive or not, but they are a little in this chart, they do appear to be a little niche. You know, that between Xbox and PlayStation, there's 100 million or so, you know, game consoles out there, maybe a little more than that. But there's already 600 million smartphones out there, and if you, you know, believe the Gartner Group, you know, that's going to get over 1 billion in the next year and a half, certainly in 2014. And that growth is going to continue, and it will eventually catch up with and surpass the installed base of things like PCs and TVs. So in terms of being able to access a tremendously big audience, this is fundamentally different than designing and making games for something like a console. And I think it's easy, again, to understand why the growth of these devices is so explosive. They're cheap, they're multi-purpose, they're portable, they're always connected, and they've got this great killer app, which is that they're a telephone. And we're gonna see mobile surpass the usage of TVs and PCs, certainly for games. So what does that mean for us? Well, you know, I've heard people talking about how great it is that the game revenue in the game industry surpasses U.S. box office and stuff like that, which is great. It's great for our business, but in terms of reach, it's you know, it's not as big numbers, because that's talking about hardware and software that costs an order of magnitude more than a movie ticket. But with a game like Halo, you know, we connect with 10 million or so people, which is great, which is a little less than what a hit TV show will connect with. American Idol, I think, connects with about 25 million people every week. Titanic, which is one of the biggest movies ever, connects with 100 million people. I find it fascinating that even in this early nascent stage of mobile, that Angry Birds have been, and now this is all their apps combined, but it's been downloaded 1 billion times. So just in terms of like how big our reach as an industry will get through mobile, it's phenomenal. And when that happens, I think there's a few opportunities that are sort of yet to really kind of grow. At least this is one that I'm focusing on, which is, I call it a sweet spot where casual games and core games meet. And I have as examples here two of my favorite games, Peggle and Portal. I picked those because they both start with P, and they're one word. But in any case, if you look at what these games do, and I'm going to show you a video on Peggle on why I actually think it's more of a core game than people realize. But Peggle's got a tremendous amount of depth to it, even though it's super simple. Whereas Portal looks and sort of feels like a first-person shooter, but it's very accessible, because you don't die very much. Certainly in the beginning, you don't die at all. Peggle gives you great rewards for mastering the skill of the mechanic. So does Portal, but Portal, coming from a core side, has lower barriers to achieving that skill. They both provide a lot of context for what you're doing in the game. There's a nice character progression in Peggle, and there's a really great story in Portal, and they're both very controllable and accessible. So to show you, I'll set up this next video, which is just a clip from Peggle, which will show you what I'm talking about in terms of bringing depth to a core mechanic. So I'm sure you've all heard of Peggle or played it. It's super simple. It is actually kind of a shooting game. You shoot a ball at pegs. But what's interesting about it is it's not just what pegs you shoot, but it's how you shoot them that really matters. So I'll show you just one clip from a level here that's being simultaneously played by 3 players: a novice, an average player, and like a super pro. And the tell that this game is well designed is that there is a great analog skill curve in this game, such that the pro is going to, not to spoil it for you, but they're going to score 13 million points on this one shot, and you'll see how 3 different skill levels can play the same bit. So this guy on the left, the novice, he's just going to get through it. He's going to beat it. And the guy in the middle, he's going to beat it, and he's going to get a pretty good score. In fact, he's got that ball trapped in the helix a little bit. That's going great for him. Dude on the right is whomping it. And it's all just with one shot, and it's because he figured out how to decode the design of this level, and he hit the shot perfectly. And he also figured out that if he did it with the right character selected and the right power-up, that he'd get the triple score. So wait for it. Here it comes. Oh yeah. For those of you that play Peggle, this feels pretty good right here. Here it comes. Yeah. 13 million points. So that's sort of what I'm talking about in terms of designing depth into mechanics, and that it's, you know, not all games have to do that, no, but that therein is, I think, a great opportunity for us to bring our craft forward, particularly on a platform like mobile, where there's a ton of noise going on, yet there's a ton of gamers. And I kind of look at mobile as being our industry's gateway drug, because the reach is so wide that we actually are going to be looking at an ecosystem here where more people are going to be playing games than enjoying other forms of entertainment. And I take it as kind of our responsibility to bring a wide variety of content, but really good content. And that won't just be great for those of us who are making games on mobile. It's going to be great for the entire industry, because it will lead to gamers wanting to have more experiences with games on other platforms, socially in their living room, on a TV, all of that kind of stuff. So that's part of why I think that this herein right now, the era that we're working in, this revolutionary period of time in the game industry that is really being catalyzed by mobile, is the greatest time that I've witnessed in our industry's history for making games. And if you'd like to follow along what we're doing at Industrial Toys, you can do so on our Twitter @Industrial Toys, or check out our website. So thank you all very much.